joining today. Thank you for joining today. My name is Lisa Paddock, and I am one of the administrators and central team leaders here at InSource. And InSource is your parent training and information center. And we have been around for 50 years. So we're very proud of that, assisting families, partnering with schools and community stakeholders to help families understand that special education process. So I hope that this is where you think you are today. Whether you're watching with us live or whether you're watching later on. So today, as Jill stated, I have the pleasure to have Elizabeth Shepard, the special education director at Plainfield, and Stephanie Garner, who is a parent on the SEPAC there, but she's also the director of parent support and education at Down Syndrome Indiana with us today. So today is going to be a little different in the format. We decided it would be a little more informal and that I would do part of the presentation and talk, and then a few more slides and talk, because I really wanted to hear from both Beth and Stephanie what's going on there in Plainfield. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on across the state, but we want to talk about the difference that special education parent advisory councils can make and hopefully shed some light, get some questions answered. Sometimes there are concerns about what this looks like, uh, how's it going to be formed, how do we keep it positive, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So at this point, I will start into the slideshow, and then we are going to be asking some questions of Stephanie and Beth, and then back and forth between the presentation. Please feel free to put questions in the chat. We will be looking forward to that. There is a PDF of this presentation in the webinar chat also. Okay. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about InSource. Okay, of course, this is our legal disclaimer. This is for educational purposes. We are not attorneys. If you need an attorney, please consult with a competent attorney. So here you will see our mission and vision statement. So I'm not going to read over all of that, but you can see that our whole goal is to support families, give equal access, appropriate individualized services to ensure that those occur, and to basically support everyone in the community that has a disability to be part of their community. So we are grant funded parent organization, and most of our employees are parents or have family members with disabilities. And of course, our services are provided free. So you might ask how we help. Well, we have regional offices all throughout the state. We also have a bilingual staff that covers throughout the state, and we give a lot of individual phone assistance. Okay. We support families statewide, and our regional staff are located throughout the state in the areas where they live. And we feel this works very well because then the regional staff are able to understand the resources, develop relationships with the families and the schools that they work with. And we do provide phone and electronic assistance, and we do still attend case conferences and 504 meetings, both in person and virtually. We're one of the last training centers in the country that do still do that, but we feel it's an important service. And we also have a number of other online learning opportunities and trainings. So you might say, so what do you do? We assist in the understanding of parents and students' educational rights and responsibilities. We provide information about that special education process, answer questions, talk about IEPs. We help families and schools work together and develop positive working relationships. And most importantly, we help parents and students become better advocates. Our staff are called special education liaisons, and that is because we help with the process. Instead of perhaps going in and saying what should happen, we're here for conversations, and we are here to assist in that conversation dealing with Article 7 and concerns rising about ideas on how to best support a student. And of course, parent participation is one of the 6 components of IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and working together with parents of students, school leaders, staff, and community partners will help give a constructive avenue to deal with issues that arise in the corporation. So in general, family engagement and collaboration is at the core. So IDEA established this team approach as a core best practice in special education. And then, of course, there was the ESSA, and that required a family engagement. And then there are Title I schools, and they must plan, measure, and plan and report parental involvement. And even more impactful parents can offer the perspectives and expertise by serving as valuable advisors and in helping in the creation of a special education parent advisory council. So we're going to talk about several different components along the way. So a SEPAC, a Special Education Parent Advisory Council, can be a catalyst to a constructive way to deal with systemic issues and celebrate systemic victories. A SEPAC can help improve educational outcomes and well-being for all students, including those with disabilities. It can help identify unmet needs and help share the development of programs, services, and policies, as well as improve district culture. InSource's role is to help facilitate conversation, give practical guidance for consideration, and assist with the understanding the purpose and function of a SEPAC. So some of the things that we're going to talk about are what is a SEPAC and what are the value of hearing parent voice in a systemic way, how that might be gathered, turning those ideas into action, and what some of those strengths would be, and what the role of InSource is in supporting your SEPAC. We won't cover every single slide in our presentation. That's why we put it in the chat, but we will cover a lot of them, and we will hit on the highlights today so that they will go along with the questions that Beth and Stephanie have. So what is a SEPAC? Okay. So SEPAC membership and procedures should be as inclusive as possible. The Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Okay. And parents don't need to have any special training or background knowledge to be part of the SEPAC. And your SEPAC in your district, your corporation, should reflect the diversity of your school system and community and give an opportunity for parents of students receiving different levels of support to contribute. Okay. So those members would include parents of children with disabilities, maybe community stakeholders, individuals with disabilities, community advocates and community partners, and school staff. So maybe why start one? What's the purpose? So any school district can establish a local SEPAC. There's not a legislation that is required. And a local SEPAC is part of the local school district, not a private or independent group. And that local SEPAC actually addresses level challenges impacting students with disabilities. So this is not about an individual child's issue. These are about systemic things to address and things to celebrate. So when we talk about a SEPAC or parent-driven, it really means that a SEPAC parent helps determine the priorities and activities, looks at the big picture. The SEPAC will typically offer strategic solutions on issues that matter to them as parents and community stakeholders and school staff, helping the schools overcome the challenges and make decisions related to special education. That parent voice and weigh-in, collaborating with the school, is vital for everyone working together to have positive outcomes. But parent-driven doesn't mean that parents do everything. District leaders help provide that structure, encouragement, logistical support, along with working together for that common good, for that goal. School staff will participate and provide information, background, data, and support. And honestly, a SEPAC is a win-win, because when parental input is valued and there is a vehicle for meaningful communication, parents are empowered to facilitate change that matters. And when school leaders are able to work with a cohesive, well-organized parent community that provides useful, coordinated input, they're able to move good ideas into action. So you might say, well, I hear about a lot of different organizations. Is a SEPAC the same as the PTO or the PTA? Okay. So advocacy groups focus on upholding rights for children and advocating for change from outside the system. And PTOs or PTAs, those parent teacher associations or groups, plan events that benefit the community and the children. And parent support groups are intended to serve parents. That's why a CPAC is different. The CPAC is a structure. Okay, it offers the opportunity to contribute input, ask questions, raise concerns to school leadership, and work together in a systemic way. A CPAC is a partnership with the school staff to deal with issues of concern and understand the laws that govern some of the special education process in the district. So, what's the purpose? Well, as I've stated, it provides direct input to the school district leaders about policies, programs, practices, and services that have an impact on students with disabilities and their families, advises, advocates, and offers guidance and recommendations to local leaders and decision makers. CPACs do not decide policy or have formal authority to issue directives. So, some solutions, things to work on, issues, they don't necessarily have an impact on the school district budget or require additional district resources. The goal with the CPAC creation is to give a seat at the table and a voice to parents in the district, to approach issues in a head-on way so that concerns are raised and hopefully dealt with at the systems level, which may help reduce complaints and the filing of due process hearings, which is one of the goals. One of the things that I often talk to directors about, I say, if you don't have a CPAC, what is your systemic method of getting parental input to show that you are working with parents? And a lot of times they might not necessarily have something, or sometimes they might, but it gets the conversation going at a systems level. So an effective CPAC that uses parental input can do several things, right? It can help improve educational outcomes and well-being for all students, particularly those students with disabilities. And the hope is that it betters for all students, right? That is the hope. But the focus with the CPAC is typically some of those issues that impact students with disabilities. It helps identify unmet needs, because typically when it's starting, there might be some surveys that go out about what's going well and what are concerns, right? Help shape the development of programs, services, and policies, as well as improve the culture of the district. So those are some of the things that an effective CPAC can help with. A substantial hope is that a systemic way to deal with concerns and to set forth communication with parents and schools will help reduce complaints and due process in the school. And it's important to know that outreach and education is vital to help engage families in positive relationships and collaborative problem solving. And an effective CPAC can help with the system change for students, and information that they receive and pass on will be vetted information about both the issues and the steps to address the issues. Many times there's lots of information that's put out from lots of sources and not all of them are vetted. By forming a CPAC, that is a great way to ensure that vetted information gets out to families and community stakeholders. An effective CPAC will also address system level challenges impacting students. Maybe that's transportation. Maybe that's a discussion that is going on about programming. And those system level challenges that impact students and their families in the school. And the changes that come from that the input from the SEPAC show responsiveness to raise concerns and provide an opportunity for districts to share information with parents about those services. So at this time, I would like to ask Beth, could you share with us a little bit about what your original interest was in creating a SEPAC in your district?
So I was actually approached by Stephanie. She is our kind of parent liaison, our parent lead for our SEPAC group. And she met with me and our superintendent, scheduled a meeting and said, hey, I'm really interested in getting something like this going in Plainfield. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, sure. I think that sounds really amazing. Our superintendent was, I don't think, hesitant at all. He just had some questions and had said that his primary concern would be to make sure that it was inclusive of all families and that everyone had an opportunity to be able to participate equally in the SEPAC group. So that's really the way that we got this started, was just a parent that had interest in wanting to increase collaboration and communication and help serve our district at kind of a larger level.
Thank you, Beth. And I honestly knew Stephanie approached you, and I was excited about that. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts were about being approached, because as you see on our slide, why should parents get involved in a SEPAC? Well, Stephanie's going to speak to that in a moment, but participation in a SEPAC offers that opportunity, as we've been talking about, raising questions, concerns, getting direct input, and getting to know the leadership in the school. And it helps families understand that some needs are individual needs, and those become a part of a bigger picture and reach a broader community of children. And again, as I often will talk about, that important question about what is your district doing to show a collaborative mechanism to work on systemic issues? And Stephanie came to you with the idea, which was wonderful. So those collaborative relationships are built through honest conversations, and having diverse council members are able to be part of the solution and understand their input is vital, and looking to set those goals. What are the priorities of our SEPAC? What are we going to be looking at for this year? And supporting those changes in the district. And a SEPAC gives other parents in the community an avenue and a mechanism to bring those concerns to the SEPAC council instead of feeling isolated and on their own. And hopefully that communication helps everyone know they don't have to necessarily fight that system, but they can bring those concerns to be looked at systemically. Stephanie, would you like to say a little bit about your interest in creating a SEPAC and approaching Beth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first heard about it because I went to an Article 7 training with About Special Kids, which is now part of Indiana Family to Family. And when I heard about it, it's Rule 736-1 in Article 7. I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Why don't we have one of those? And so I approached Beth and our superintendent, and honestly, I was expecting to get an answer like, you know what, like, let me think about that. And then maybe a couple years later, we would see movement. I was blown away when our superintendent like jumped at the idea. And I mean, I had a yes by the end of our meeting. I was shocked. And so we were able to kind of get started right away. And my reason for wanting to get involved really was just like what Lisa said. I wanted to get to know the administration and the players within our community. I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard and that the voice of other parents was heard as well. And my daughter was younger at the time, probably maybe kindergarten, first grade. So I was still very new to the process. And it really has just been a phenomenal way to get to know the administration and develop those relationships. And when I talk to parents who need and want to develop relationships, I always say, join your CPAC or talk to your administration about starting a CPAC, because it truly is the very best way.
Thank you so much. It's just so wonderful to hear the collaboration, right? Because you'll see the slide, we've already talked about it, those individual issues to systemic change. And that an effective CPAC invites, collects, and coordinates individual stories and perspective from parents and looks to see at this input to see if there's patterns or trends that can be addressed through policies, programs, and services that have the potential to affect many students with disabilities. And this is how a CPAC moves from individual issues to systemic change. And that's one of the things about a CPAC is there, as we'll talk about, there are to be some goals, some action steps, some ways to assess whether they are effective in a given period of time. And to celebrate the systemic victories. A CPAC is not all about things that are wrong that need to be changed. It is about working together and recognizing many of the things that are also going right. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits. What are the benefits of an effective CPAC? So you will see some of the actual components here. Outreach, positive relationships, collaborative problem solving, system change based on input, a trusted source of information, information sharing, and improved services and programs, and a deepened trust. So before I go back to the ladies to ask questions, I'm just going to head on a few of these components. So the outreach can engage families of students with disabilities so they're more involved in helping shape local special education programs and policies. Their voice gets heard. There is a system and a mechanism to bring concerns. The positive relationship component, of course, is pretty obvious. You hope that the CPACs engage parents and school leaders to establish shared goals and priorities that benefit students with disabilities. They connect the teachers, the teams, and the community resources as a source of support for helping improve those programs and services. Collaborative problem solving. Okay, so we know there's an issue. What do we do about it? The hope and the goal of the CPAC is to work to thrive on that team spirit and team action. When members bring varied perspectives, everyone shares a common mission to improve the outcome of all students receiving special education services and supports. That CPAC then continues to grow and have a structure and create some system change based on the input that's been collected. So CPACs can communicate the needs of parents whose children receive special ed and related services at all different levels and can advise school leaders on unmet needs identified through that parental input. And you want to, at the core of this is also remember that it is an inclusive voice of all the families in your area, in your district. The CPAC can become a trusted source of information and strengthen the bridge between school district and families. The CPAC members who educate themselves about school policies and channels of communication can be an information source of parents who may need informational support and resources from their school and can steer that parent in the appropriate direction, even on how to move forward with an individual issue, who to contact, what are the laws around that, and what is district policy. Because sometimes if the law doesn't state it, then it goes to district policy. Additionally, information sharing is an important component, and it provides an opportunity for districts to share information with parents about instructional programs, professional development opportunities that are happening, and other matters related to special education. And the goal is, of course, improve services and programs. Changes that come about as a result of input from CPACs are responsive to the identified needs of the school community. And the overall result, hopefully, is deepened trust. that over time, as school leaders react and respond to input from SEPAC, trust builds and grows. And I'd like to speak to that because it doesn't mean that there will not be some perhaps hard conversations. I like to say that even in families, friendships, or jobs, there are hard conversations. It's hopefully the best way to help solve the problem. Respectful conversation, conversation based on data, and based on everyone working together for a common good. So at this point, Stephanie, I would like it if perhaps you could talk a little bit about community benefit of SEPAC as it is forming and as it's up and running in Plainfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that our community as a whole benefits so much. Like our CPAC was able to make some recommendations to update our school website to include more information about special education, more resources for families, because for some families, when they're first getting their diagnosis, they are already involved in the school system. So they are looking to our schools for help and resources. So we worked with our school team to beef up what we had on the website to be able to support families who might go there looking for resources. I think that our CPAC has done a great job of providing education for our families whose children receive special education services as well. We have quarterly town hall meetings where we are able to bring in speakers and cover different topics. We usually have a session on the Medicaid waiver so that we can educate families. We do quarterly newsletters as well, and we like to put little tidbits in there. So while the purpose of a CPAC is not to educate parents, we are working on that as well. And then we have hosted a family engagement brunch where we invited families to come in and have conversations with our administration. And I think that was really great as well, because many of these families don't have the opportunity to talk one-on-one, to sit down at a table while eating a cinnamon roll and have some fun conversations. And one of the things you hit on this earlier, Lisa, but I just wanted to expand on it. You said that CPACs don't have to be about just the bad stuff and the hard stuff. I think that we do such a good job of also celebrating all of the things that our school district does well. And that, I think, is incredibly important for our administrators to hear. They need that positive feedback as well, right? The constructive criticism is wonderful because we want to continue to make ourselves better. But I think it's also really important that we are telling them all of the things that they're doing right, because while I'm not a school administrator, Beth, I would imagine that your job mostly deals with talking to people who are not happy. And so I also love that it gives our administrators a chance to hear all the things that they're doing really well.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Beth, could you maybe speak a little bit to the community benefits that you've seen and what that looks like?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I kind of selfishly gain a lot of benefit from my relationship with our CPAC members. They really do help me understand larger issues for sure, but they also kind of act as liaisons to other families in our community. And I think that has been really helpful. Not every family or not every parent knows that my position exists and that I'm here and that I'm a problem solver and that I'm here to help. And or they might think that I work in the administration office and I'm not really reachable, those kinds of things. And so it's been really beneficial for my participation in the CPAC. It's been really beneficial to get my face and my name out there, and to let families know that I'm here to collaborate, that I want to help, that they are invited to call me or email me at any time, that I will attend case conferences with them, that I'll support them along their journey as well. So that's been a huge benefit. I think just kind of changing that perspective of, living in a glass tower maybe and not being reachable. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to hear some of the individual concerns that parents bring to us. And then also thinking about that systemic change that you mentioned, Lisa. We've had, some parents share really individual stories about volunteering in classrooms, right? Which is a very personal experience, and, have larger conversations about what is the volunteer policy and what does that look like and how is it impacting students and what are changes that can be made to that volunteer policy so that, our parents are more integrated into their school settings and are feeling more comfortable. So I just have really, I think the benefits, I could go on about information sharing and getting factual information out to families, being transparent to the community, I think has been all very positive in, shaping a reputation that, I'm proud of here in Plainfield.
Beth, thank you for that. And I would encourage you to share anything that you would like, because sometimes administrators are concerned. They're interested, but they want to make sure that it stays on a positive road, even with dealing with hard issues. So along the way, please, or even if you have more to share, I think that is very important.
Can I
Please
jump in
do.
one? Yeah, so sorry, Lisa.
No, please do.
I was just going to add, I think that like there have been some parents who have come to our CPAC who had more of a, it's us, the parents, against our school system mentality. And I think that the CPAC has been really great for those parents to understand, like, hey, we are all a team. We are all working together. We have very different vantage points and very different approaches, but we are all here together working for the greater good. And, I think it has made Beth and other members of the administration so much more approachable. Not that Beth was ever not approachable, but like sometimes people have this idea, right? That she's sitting up on high. And so I love that CPAC has done that for a lot of families.
I think that is wonderful, because I do really think that transparency and approachable director is important, because one thing I say to directors, if I'm looking on your website and it takes me 15 minutes to find you, and I'm very used to school websites, how long does it take your families? So, Beth, I think that is wonderful and speaks volume to your want to hear from families. And I think that is another great example of why CPACs, when they are effective CPACs and the goal is clearly understood, really provides school staff with some insight that they would not have ever gotten. And it provides parents with insight about the daily workings and in and outs, of schools and policies, and what does that mean.
Yeah,
So,
and Lisa, just to piggyback off that, and then I'll be quiet for a minute.
No, please. This is exactly what we wanted.
I think that for me, it's been just a really, like I said, positive opportunity. And, when we're talking about interacting with families and we're talking about providing, information to families and improving that communication, there have been issues that have come up that are questions that I can't fix. Because they are systemic, or they are, the structures around those problems come from federal to state to local education agencies. And so there are problems that I can't fix, right? But what I can do for my CPAC team and my families is explain it, and explain the procedures and explain the policies and provide that why things work this way, or why this is so hard to change, or why this has been so significant. And I think that does go a long way. So it's not like every problem or every issue that comes to me is something that's solvable, but I do think that, being honest about that, this is the procedure, but let me tell you about what that looks like and why, and just being transparent and sharing that information has also helped families understand, like, it's not just me saying no, right? It's a larger picture.
I think that's such a great point, because there are some things like that Families sometimes wonder, why must my child take a state assessment, particularly if they're delayed, right? Why must this occur? And that gives a great opportunity to speak to the family personally and to put out information through the SEPAC, because many times if one family is wondering, other families are too. Okay. Beth and Stephanie, just speak out at any time because I can't see you. So please feel free to add things along the way. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about SEPAC formation, because a lot of times the questions we get is, well, what does it even look like, right? So being intentionally inclusive, consider the linguistic, religious, racial, cultural, and economic diversity to be sure that SEPAC reflects your families and your community. Okay, and so starting and structuring a local SEPAC would involve some components that we're going to talk about typically. District leaders and parents meet to develop a plan. There's often some kind of needs assessment that goes out, and planners host a well-promoted introductory workshop or information meeting to generate interest and develop a roster of potential SEPAC members of different ages, schools, programs, cultures, and levels of need to ensure that it is inclusive. And there's a short mission statement to guide the work of the SEPAC. There are some goals and objectives that come together after they find out the need and the concerns. And they plan different types of meetings, right? Topics with speakers, listening meetings, meetings where parents can speak. Additionally, they come up with a system where parents are able to get those concerns or thoughts to the SEPAC members. So the structure and the mechanism are up to the SEPAC to determine themselves. This is an advisory council to gather information and input to deal with systemic issues and consider systemic ways to approach concerns. This is an avenue to also share systems that are working well and provide support that's helping students to be successful, such as a transition program dealing with community employment that is going well. It is another opportunity, again, to talk about what's going well. And sometimes that input assessment even asks that. What are your concerns in our district and what do you feel is going well? Transportation is going well, or case conference, getting a case conference. There's a variety of different things that can be asked on that, some of that input information, those surveys, to come back and take a look at what are things that need to be looked at because there's some questions or concerns and what's going well. So you want to consider the ways parents will share these concerns, like I said, with the SEPAC, what's going to be the vehicle, and communication strategies the SEPAC will use to reach and engage parents. Sometimes that's information on the website, and I'm sure that Beth and Stephanie will talk about that. Maybe an email address. There's a variety of ways to engage parents, those surveys. This communication also helps explain the purpose of the SEPAC, what it is and isn't, and helps establish the legitimacy and build awareness in the district. So some other steps that usually happen in thinking about how to structure a local SEPAC is develop the meeting schedule for the year. You will want to have ground rules, bylaws, procedure, and guideline for the scope of work. You'll have to have a common goal and how a code of ethics, right? How things are going to occur in the meetings, and determine the roles and responsibilities for SEPAC members and the district staff. Develop communication strategies, including maybe even using the annual IEP meetings, case conferences to share information about how to get involved with the SEPAC. And before I go back to the ladies for thoughts about structuring and how it came to be, and even the changes that regularly go on. There are some best practices to think about. So as you're setting your structure, you're getting input. What are some of the things that we want to make sure? Well, we've already talked about communication, right? And You want to make sure that the communication is easy to understand for all the families in the district. At some of the meetings, you might consider offering some kind of childcare or activity. Think about the distance and any assistance with transportation. Can some of the meetings be virtual? Some be in person. Some be at the library. Some be at the school. And holding them at different times so that family members can take part. As I already mentioned, some could be virtual, some could be in person, and encourage multi-generational family participation. The grandparents are important, the great-grandparents, the aunts or uncles. They're all part of the community and part of educating the students. Reaching out to community organizations to ask them to provide support to families who may want to participate. Maybe even having some kind of a buddy approach, right? Somebody's on the council and they go and mentor some parents. Identify the cultural and linguistic liaisons at the school who are people with whom parents can relate, and ask parents who are involved or participating to bring other parents along. And of course, at the case conference, explaining that this SEPAC has been formed, and if you want to be part of it, you want to learn more about it, here's information. Using social media, texting, and automated school system messaging to reach families. And of course, I already mentioned accommodating very different work schedules, investing in person-to-person outreach, and again, providing some transportation or some other supports for meetings. Sometimes that's food, right? So families don't have to worry about supper. So at this point, Beth, would you, when Stephanie approached you, and I'm sure Stephanie had some ideas about what she was thinking, could you speak a little bit to how the SEPAC was formed? What were some of your thoughts? Did you start with a needs assessment? Do you continue to do needs assessments? How did you decide on how many school staff will take place? And is there representation from each building? Could you just speak to whatever
Yeah,
you're
sure.
thinking?
Yeah. So when we were just getting started, it was really early on. I think we were like the first SEPAC in Indiana. And
Yes.
so like we were building the plane and flying at the same time. So it's so nice that there are resources out there for other school districts who want to embark on this journey with us. But I feel like one of the fundamental aspects or a building block for me was this core group of individuals who start the SEPAC. We wanted them to be individuals that we could rely on. We wanted to invite individuals to, as we're getting this off the ground, that would offer differing opinions on topics, but we just kind of selected a few families. I said, Stephanie, who do you know? And I knew some teachers who also had students with, children with disabilities. And so, we just came together and said, hey, I think these 3 or 4 people. And I said, I think these 3 or 4 people because of these reasons. And that was our kind of core group of parents to get started. And we just really needed a group of individuals who would ask questions, collaborate, work well together, be committed to getting this off the ground. And those were initially kind of tough meetings because we were all trying to figure out what we want this group to be about and what our goals were going to be, and what's the priority and all of these things, and what's a first year plan and what's a long-term plan. And so those initial meetings were, a lot of, I don't want to say storming, but there was just a lot of, we are trying to figure out who we are and what we're gonna do as a group. And then kind of moving through time, members have dropped off. We've had new members join. And during those times, we do talk to, it's not every meeting that we go over our bylaws or go over our code of conduct, but when we are having, big meetings with lots of families, we definitely review those, what our what our outcomes, what our positive outcomes look like, what our goals look like for the team. We've even asked building principals to provide recommendations on families that they think might be interested in or good at, participating in a CPAC. So we've gotten several members from principal recommendations, like this family is really committed and they're very interested and involved, and they have a lot of questions and they want answers, and we've gotten really good recommendations for new members in that regard. And then I don't know, Stephanie, if you want to talk about, how we try to cover the buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your description of building the plane as we fly it. I'm so jealous about the National CPAC guide that you helped author, but Lisa. That was just it's so amazing and such a really cool, comprehensive guide that kind of outlines all of the things that we're talking about today. And going back through that now, years later, I'm so proud of how close we came to doing everything, but we were in the dark. We had no idea what we were doing. And I know one of our first real hiccups, I think we kind of stalled out after a point because we had kind of a miscommunication about who was running the group. And because I was kind of thinking like, oh, I just said I want to do this. And so now Beth will be in charge. And Beth and I finally connected, and she was like, no, this is your group. This is a parent-led group. This is what you guys need. And so I was able to say, oh, okay, then I need to take more ownership of that. And so that was a really great conversation. Like, I feel like if you are starting a CPAC, it's really important to have those conversations with your administration about who is going to be, kind of steering the ship. And honestly, out of all of the CPACs that I know about, everyone kind of runs a little bit differently depending on their size of their district, the personalities of their administrators and their parent leaders. And so those are really important conversations to have early on, just so that you don't get your wires crossed. And our goal in our CPAC is to have representation from all of our buildings. So every elementary school, our middle school, and our high school. And on paper, I think that we are, for the first time ever, I think that we're there. We may be missing one school in our district, but unfortunately, we don't always get participation from all of those buildings. But that is our goal, to make sure that we do have representation from all of our schools. And like Beth said, reaching out to principals has been a great way to connect with new families. And we even got some leads from our family engagement brunch. We make sure every time we have a meeting, we try and talk about the fact that, though I think I forgot that at our last meeting, Beth, but we do try and talk at every town hall meeting about, if you're interested in joining our leadership team, this is the date and time that we meet. Reach out to Beth and she'll get you connected. So.
And then Lisa, you had asked about needs assessment, and that came later for us. We didn't, we kind of prioritized initially as a core group, what we thought our needs were, and didn't really send out that needs assessment for lots of reasons. Life and time, and then COVID, and like lots of things happened right at the beginning there that we didn't send that survey out. So that just happened for us last year. Stephanie, was that right? And then we've used those results. We had a parent who really took the lead on creating the survey and kind of quantifying the data and sharing it out with us. So that was one of our town halls this year, was the results of the parent survey, and then use those results to drive kind of our meetings this year, as we've met monthly, and then as we've had our quarterly town halls, and information that we've included in our handouts and newsletters to families have all been kind of driven from that needs study. So that just happened later for us. It wasn't, it's never too late. So if you've already started, you haven't done one, you can still do it.
And our survey, like, it was really comprehensive. It was great. And it looked at a whole lot of aspects of our school district. And if your CPAC is interested in something like that, we are absolutely willing to share that. If you want to join, I don't know, Lisa, if you're going to talk about our Indiana CPAC collaborative, but we have those questions available in our Indiana CPAC collaborative drive that we are happy to share with anyone that wants to try and do that. We are not going to share our wonderful CPAC member who analyzed all those results, though. So you'll have to analyze your own results, but
Thank you. And I'm trying at the same time, I'm going to try to drop the national document in if my computer will do that. Otherwise, people can Google Special Education Parent Advisory Council national document. It will come up, but I think I've got it ready here if my computer will do it. Okay, that was absolutely wonderful. I'm going to share a couple of more slides if all of the magic happens. So here are just some things to consider. Here are some things that maybe parent members may want to do. All members, both parents and school staff, should understand that function of a CPAC, develop and maintain the knowledge of those regulations pertaining to that, the special education process, and the members should attend and participate in those meetings. And as Beth and Stephanie said, it's going to look different with each one. When you do your needs assessment, what are the rules that you set out? That's not governed by anything except your own CPAC group. Going to, find out a way to get the information out, establish those connections, and look at attending those meetings and representing, seeking representation for all the groups. School leaders, right? They would typically work to engage the parents, arrange the services and supports to ensure diverse participation. Beth talked about principals giving ideas and teachers and how it all came together for different families to be involved. And helping families understand even the difference in an individual issue and a systemic issue, and identifying those areas of concern and seeking remedies. And I'm so glad that Beth said we did our survey a different time. That's perfectly fine. Somewhere along the way, that will typically be a part. And then you can consider submitting the report to your local school board, right? And invite members of the CPAC to talk to the school board. And so the schools make the decision about the information and how it's distributed to the district and to families usually. Parents want and need to have plenty of time to know about meetings, have a clear understanding of when it'll start and when it will end, even having interpreters if needed. What is that all going to look like? And to know what a CPAC is compared to a PTO or a PTA. And we hope that there's a collaborative effort between the school and the family for the information to be shared out. Hopefully, maybe there's even a CPAC email, a link on the school special education page, right? Things along those lines it helps give validity to the CPAC, right? It's school and its family working together. Okay, so I have a few closing thoughts and slides that are coming up at the end, but I would love to have Beth and Stephanie now kind of look back over where you started, where you are. Is it 5 years now? 6 years? Oh, 6. Okay. And tell us a little bit, maybe even a peek into the future. What would you like to see happen? What do you, how are you feeling now that's a pretty big major milestone? You're right, as far as I know, you were one of the first across the state at this point. Years ago, they were common. They were more common. I was part of one almost 20 years ago, but then they kind of fell by the wayside. So I was so happy that InSource was able to really be a driving force to bring that back out. Our executive director, Don McGrath, has been behind this 100%. We've been talking to directors, talking to families. So do you and Beth have anything, Stephanie, that you want to share about this big picture as you put everything together and talking? Maybe you're speaking now to a director who's thinking about it, or a family. Maybe it's someone who's watching saying, I'd like to get this going in my district.
Yeah. Well, I can start, and then I am going to have to jump off in about 5 minutes to go get my kiddo. Um, but I would encourage you, if you are a family member who thinks, man, this might be a really cool thing in my district, like it is overwhelming. I totally get it, right? It feels really big and it can be intimidating to think about approaching your school administration with such a big project. But I would encourage you to do it, to take the risk. If it feels too big for you, find other parents within your district to partner with so that you can go together to talk to your administration. But it is so worth it. It has been amazing to see the growth within our SEPAC. Like Beth said, we've had some members come and go and some come back to us, but we are still having really productive meetings. And I love some of the topics that we are taking on as we are hearing things that affect our families. And um, it's truly exciting to get to be part of coming up with ideas and being able to present those to the administration and say, hey, what about this? Does this, could this work? What could we do with this? It's so fun to get to be a part of that. And again, just to know so many people. If you are a director or administrator who is here listening and thinking, I don't know, I'm really nervous about it. I can tell you, I think that was probably the scariest thing for Beth. I'm gonna speak on your behalf. I think she was really nervous about getting negative feedback and having meetings be sessions where people were just complaining and having to be a really negative thing. And we have worked really hard with our SEPAC to make sure that everybody understands that it is collaborative in nature. And, we're not always going to disagree, and we can talk about hard things. We don't have to disagree, but we do need to do so respectfully. And we do need to do so with that greater good, coming together, finding a solution kind of in the back of our minds. And it really, it's take a chance. It is so worth it. And I think the thing that has surprised me is, though I was assuring Beth when we started, oh, it's going to be fine, it won't be negative, I promise. I didn't know that, right? I was a little worried about that too. But I think the thing that has surprised me at the start, and then even 6 years later, after we've done this survey of our families, like families are happy, like we're doing a good job. And I love that we're able to give not only our families but also our administrators that feedback that things are good here, we're doing a great job. Absolutely, there's room for improvement, everywhere, but overwhelmingly I feel like the focus has been on what we are doing good and not just what we need to do differently or better.
Yeah, I'm really proud of us. So I think that's, as I'm looking back, and we got this little group going, and it is, there's commitment that needs to be involved if you want this group to continue and to take off. You do have to have people dedicated to the process and to the meetings and to the project, all of the things. Like you just have to have dedicated individuals to keep it sustainable over long term. So, we've been lucky enough in our SEPAC to have, members who have been with us since the very beginning, and who have been very committed to what we're doing and the mission of the group. And so I'm really proud that we made it. We made it through COVID. We made it through, all of the things that, the ups and downs of, are we going to, keep off the ground when our membership got really low? Like, how can we grow again? So just always working on kind of maintaining the group and keeping it a part of the district and a priority. Now I have administrators that come up to me and say, hey, this might be something that you want to bring up to your parents at, your SEPAC meeting, because, these changes to attendance are happening, or these things that are, happening in the district that maybe they need to know about. Did you think about, how not to harp on COVID, but how masks are going to impact families. Like, are there topics that you need to bring up and put into, informational? So I just love that, right? I love that people now know that it is, we're here and it's a group, and that we meet and that we are talking about, topics of interest to families, and families are talking to us about things that are of concern, and that we're just kind of all growing together along the way.
Oh, thank you, Beth. And that
Mhm.
also speaks to the vetted information piece to get it all out. And Stephanie, I know you have to hop off before we're done. And I want to thank you and thank you for putting that national guide, CPAC guide in. And that's one thing that I'm very excited about with CPACs is being able to look at a concern and give out some information, right? I read information, good cause exemption information. And so as we are slowly finishing up here, I have a few more slides. So this slide just is some common example of CPAC topics. You will see a variety of things there. Again, many times when you hear from parents, you'll hear things going well and things not going so well. And it is important to think along the way, what are 2 or 3 things that can be focused on throughout perhaps that year goal, right? Because that's one of the important things to think about is the fact that with the topics that you deal with, you'll also want to take a look at assessing the impact, right? What are we doing? How are we sharing this information for families, for our school staff? There are some strengths and strategies, which really we've already talked about. And then as we come toward the end, the role of InSource, your parent training center, in supporting your CPAC. And that's one of the things that I just wanted to speak just a moment to. It is the fact that core to our mission is engaging parents in advocacy and systems change through information, training, and support. And we can provide trainings just like this training to interested districts and talk to parents and mentor parents and share links to those national resources, right? We can help connect you with guides and checklists and input forms. Some of the things in that national document, sometimes there is actually a structure for the CPAC initiative. And Stephanie, do you have a moment to speak to that, the CPAC initiative, before you go?
She had to get off already.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
Okay.
Lisa.
That's
Yeah.
all right. I can't see, so I wasn't positive. And of course, additionally, we're here. We are not there to tell someone how to form the CPAC, but we're there to give assistance and come in and do maybe Article 7 trainings or collaborating with your school. But we're here to help also share about the value of CPACs. So additionally, I encourage people, contact their local InSource special education liaison. You are welcome to contact me and ask questions. There is a CPAC initiative and that meets quarterly. And there are about, and I'm going to probably mess up the number, I should have asked Stephanie. I think there's something like maybe 10 CPACs now across the state, Beth, do you know?
I think so. And just through the work that you're doing and the work that Stephanie's doing with, the statewide group, I do get calls from
Good.
directors, and I do get, questions and people wanting to meet and talk about what it looks like. I've had the director from Westfield and Noblesville and, other people, reach out to me in Carmel about, how this looks and how we got it off the ground. So continue to do that work, because I think that's really helping these programs grow. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you and thank InSource for the work that you do in providing that collaborative relationship between schools and parents and helping foster the process. It's really appreciated. appreciated, at least for my chair.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And of course, you'll see our social media. We have lots of ways to contact us directly at insource@insource.org. You can email, request assistance through our website at insource.org. You can join our online communities, our In Touch weekly newsletter. You can call us. You can call us directly, your InSource person. So there's lots of ways to reach out and contact us and find out more about SEPACs, more about ways that parents and schools can collaborate. So at this time, that's what we have, and we are so appreciative that you have joined InSource, and Beth Shepard, Special Education Director from Plainfield, and Stephanie Garner from Down Syndrome Indiana for our webinar on SEPACs. And Jill, do we have any questions?
No, Lisa, we didn't have any questions that popped up on either platform.
Okay.
I just want to thank both ladies for being here today. And just to remind everyone that if you do have further questions, please feel free to reach out and we will direct you in the right direction. If you are watching this on replay, please remember to fill out that survey and that sign in for us. That's greatly appreciated as well. And Beth, thank you so much for being here today. It was absolutely a pleasure to have you and to hear the wonderful work that's going on in Plainfield and the collaboration that you have with your families. I do have to tell you that I did get to watch this personally because I did get to attend a couple things that that they did have right after COVID was over, and it was, I can't remember, but it was the tricycle event that they had, and it was so impressive to hear the parents and see the parents and how well they were receptive, and they just had such good things to say about the entire group. So there's a lot of good things that are going on, and a lot comes out of that SEPAC. So. But thank you very much for being here today. Greatly appreciate it. Lisa, as always, thank you so much. I do not have any more questions on either platform. So at this time, we will say thank you very much again. And everyone, we will, oh, we do have something that just popped in. Oh, it was nothing important. But thank you. And this is my grandson. Sorry, we have a little bit of an issue today. So
that is all right. He is delightful, and he got to participate.
Yes, he did. He learned a lot today.
And so again, you can learn more. You can email us or Stephanie about the Indiana SEPAC Collaborative. Thank you so much for joining InSource. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Beth. And thank you, Stephanie, even if you had to leave. So Jill, that's all I have.
All righty, ladies. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.